Okay, so, all right, so we're all prepared for the ride. We come out to our starting point. So now, how do we handle things out there? So if you have a smartphone, you can bring it along and help the other person get registered. We expect now these days, most people have their own smartphone. Okay, if you have the medical sticker, have them fill that out if you have that available. I don't know that it's required for a ride, but it's not a bad idea. So I always carry some incident reporting forms with me, just in a Ziploc bag. And then I also have my rider list. I just print it out and stick it in a Ziploc that I carry with me. Particularly in the summer, if you don't put it in a Ziploc, it gets pretty gunky by the end of the ride. So yeah, plastic Ziploc. The medical forms go on your helmet. You have a little envelope that sticks inside your helmet. So you write all your information here, put it into the envelope, stick it inside your helmet, and then you have the sticker, a sticker on the outside, and they have also condition-specific stickers.
Where do you get that?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
If you want to email me, I can send you information with Gay Bikes. We order them and get, like, I can even give you some samples if you just need a few. We have lunch, but I can also tell you where to order them.
I think we've
Brenda,
got-
we have a ton.
We have a box in the office. A lot of people these days are just getting road IDs as well.
That's another good one to do.
25 bucks or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
Emergency workers know to look for those things.
Yeah, well, if you put the sticker on your helmet, it'll be pretty obvious to an emergency worker. And I also carry in my little Ziploc, I'll carry some information, ICE, that kind of thing.
If you have an Apple Watch, you can put it on your phone and it's retrievable by an EMS person.
Or you can get the one that goes on your Apple Watch.
Yeah, right.
Road ID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like on your phone.
So if you're doing large rides and you can set up an easel, you can mark the hazard areas, show the routes and so on. Have the ride with GPS link posted. That way people can download it right there, at least onto their phones, if not onto their computers. So if you're doing smaller rides in particular, you will generally see the rider as they come up to you and you're talking. So you want to do a general site evaluation of their bike. Is it an appropriate bike for the type of ride? You're out doing a 50-mile ride and somebody shows up in a sidewalk cruiser. Probably not appropriate, okay? So do they have their water bottles with them? So I drive out to our starting point. So I will just generally fill a few extra water bottles, stick them in the trunk. So that if somebody does forget their water bottle or just doesn't bring one, I can give them a water bottle for the ride. There shouldn't be any visible problems with the bike. Now, Gordon, did you prepare a bike?
I did not. I have in the past. I was hoping somebody else would.
Okay.
But I'm sure people here have stories of, has anybody ever brought their bike, with the front wheels separated, put it on and forget to connect the brakes?
Yeah. So, I mean, you want to look for those things. Are the brakes set? I've been on a ride where I could see the cord showing through the tire. Yeah, you might want to warn the rider, that it's you probably shouldn't be riding on that. I don't want to have to go change his tire for him. Okay. So anyway, you want to be aware of those kinds of things. Just a quick glance, you can usually tell if there's a
We
problem.
had a guy show up and he hadn't put air in his tires since the prior year.
You might be able to notice if the tire's a little low. Soft ride.
If you're shepherding one of these new groups or people where you're attracting new people, the old League of American Bicyclists ABC check. It's simple to remember. Air just thinks tire, wheel for air. B is for brakes. Just double check they work, and then C for chain. Just make sure things are operating or it's not rust and all that stuff.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
general statement for the group, because I'm gonna assume I'm not the only guy in the room that doesn't have a whole ton of bike repair experience. I've just been fortunate to not have to do a whole lot of that myself. Does COP offer any kind of like a refresher course for like general bike maintenance, or is that something?
Some of
that
the
you
bike
consider
shops have
doing?
done that. Trish is,
Like, I know Specialized comes out to the Tuesday, Thursday night ride in Hilliard, and they've got like a mobile shop there.
I know,
We're gonna do a Saturday event, teach people how to change tires and things like that.
That'd be awesome.
okay,
I say Franklinton Cycle Works does that too.
Is there something that we could do as a group?
Yeah, third and.
we can probably, try to arrange something.
A little preseason?
Maybe
I
we'll
can teach
do
how to
that
change
in-
tires
I
in
mean, I know
5 minutes
how.
without tire levers.
Yeah.
I never use tire levers.
You just got that strong thumb.
Maybe we'll do that in conjunction with the annual swap meet on March 30th, which will be at the Hilliard Fairgrounds. So there'll be an excuse for you to come and get a little 2-for-1 deal. Evan, if you're listening, how about that? That's our swap meet guy.
Yeah. He's here. He's online. He's listening.
All right.
Okay,
Quick releases. Some people don't know how to do a quick release.
Yeah.
Treat it, I can screw it on, and you have to look at the shape of that. And then it's not working and it can't fall off. And
There's a lot of bikes out there, new bikes, old bikes.
Yeah.
A lot of different.
And if they have the gears in the large chain ring in front and the small cog in the back, they probably don't understand shifting gears.
right. I mean, some of that you can help them with on
On
the
the
road.
ride.
Yeah.
But
anyway, So also a general evaluation of the rider's attire. We had somebody show up and it was like 35 degrees and he was in a t-shirt and shorts. So is the clothing appropriate for the ride? Do they have their helmet? If they don't have a helmet, they are not part of the ride. Okay, it's required on all COP rides. So pass any observations on to the rider. You're trying to educate them as much as possible and tell them why you should or shouldn't be doing whatever. You can't stop them from riding, but explain why they're not riding as part of our group. Okay, and yeah, they shouldn't be on the road anyway, but you can't stop them. Be encouraging, help, and you can say, well, when we get back, if you let me know, I can help you get prepared maybe for the next ride. So you can be encouraging that way and help them along. Yeah, don't let an ill-prepared rider register. I think we've been through that enough times now. What if they pre-register? Well, then I think, do we fill out an incident report form for that? Because they should
Have a witness.
have a witness that they're not prepared or are ill-prepared and that we warned them about it. But I mean, if I saw somebody with the cord showing through his tire, I would say, you shouldn't be on this ride. Your bike isn't safe for the ride.
If they're on one of our one-day ride series rides, we'd be more than happy to refund their money.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty strict about that. I don't want them to have a flat on the road.
If they will not listen, I would just make them ride at the back. You can ride at the back. You're not part of our ride, but
Yeah.
don't get in the middle of us.
Right. Yeah.
We've run into this a few times. We ride an A, B, and C ride every week. And where we run into most problems, especially a new rider, they'll show up and they're like, well, I'm an A rider, and I'm like, and you're looking and you're like, well, you got the cutoff shorts and the t-shirt. And yeah, it's like, maybe you should, why don't you just start with the B's or the C's this week? You can't stop them from riding in the A's, but those guys ain't gonna put up with them.
Right.
And so you're like, hey, why don't you just this week you start out, with this group, see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then next week, depending on, because a lot of people overestimate their abilities, they're bragging a little bit more. And when they get out on that road, and you get a feel for it, especially if it's during the beginning of the season, mid-season, towards the late, they get a pretty good idea if they've been out a few times. But we run into that problem mostly, and it breaks up the harmony of the group.
Well, it's unsafe. It's unsafe.
It is.
And it's unsafe. Yeah.
Very
What's
good.
COT's policy on using a rear view mirror?
Highly recommended.
Recommended, not required.
I brought my mirror.
Correct.
Correct.
I would rather go out without my helmet than a rear view mirror. If I had to choose. Silly, but, it's just me.
Or you put
I
your mirror on your
have
helmet.
ridden with one for
Yeah.
25 years. It's just a powerful, powerful tool.
I find myself walking along, looking in my rearview mirror for cars. But anyway,
We'll talk about it later.
So, yeah, reasons to invite them not to ride with your group. You know, we've covered all these already. Announcements. Sometimes you need to make announcements for everybody, like road hazard or something like that, or this is what's expected, this is what we're going to do. So that also helps you identify some of the new riders, and we can then kind of divide them up as to where they should go. And then, as you mentioned, make sure they understand the speed of the group and whether it's a drop ride or not. You know, if you go with the A's, will get dropped and you're going to be all on your own. You know, so why don't you stick back with some of the non-drop groups, and that way, you know, you won't be accidentally dropped all by yourself. And reiterate whatever rules you have for your ride. Yeah.
Any tips on how to manage those riders that show up? I'm not gonna, let's just say hypothetically, you're on a B ride. You got some A guys that show up that night and they're rehabbing and they want to join your group. And you've got a B group that has an understanding they're going to hang at 18 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But you get these guys that show up and they're pushing the pace at 20, 21, 22. How do you manage that mid-ride as the leader?
Mid-ride, I don't know, because they're already gone.
But the ride is trying to keep up, they're trying to hang with
Yeah,
them, right?
and they're sucking the group along with
Yeah.
them. And you got
I
guys
would,
off the
I would
back
probably
end
go up
saying,
and tell them to back off.
Or let them go.
Or,
I tell the riders behind those people, slow it down, let them do their thing.
Just let them
If
go.
they want to go off, if they want to go off and do it, it's great, but try to,
Yeah.
you can't make the A's listen, but you can make the B's.
well, at least some of the A's. Some of the A's, if they understand it's a B ride, will say, okay, I know that, I will adapt to the pace. But yes, if they start picking up the pace, first thing I do is I mention it to them. Hey, can you back off to about this speed? One thing that I have found helpful as a ride leader is I have a power meter. Now, not everybody will have one, but what I can do is I can find the pace that my weakest rider is comfortable with. I make note of that on my power meter and I hold the group to that power, whether we're going upwind, downwind, uphill, downhill. So that allows me to pace the group according to the strength of the rider.
Poor man's power meter is your heart rate.
Yeah. Right, but you know, you can have some ways of determining what your weakest rider is. So I'll get out a couple of miles and then I'll drop back to that last rider. Say, okay, how are you doing? Is this too fast, or are you comfortable at this pace? Can you keep this up? And talk to them about particularly if they're really new, you know, kind of how hard should you be going? And then I can adjust the pace of the group to match that rider.
And tell them they can do a short pull.
Yeah, well, I'll let them draft. I'll talk about drafting and that kind of thing.
This skill takes years to develop. It is one of the most prized skills of an experienced ride leader. To be able to control a group, to check ego, control and keep a group together, looking at who your weakest links are and modifying to that, having a group that understands what the vibe and parameters are. I've been in front of a group pulling at a particular rate and then had others come up and say, here, let us pull a bit. And I say, I'd rather you not. Well, then they still get up there and then we just stick where we're sticking and they keep going like this. And then finally they get it and I say, just go on back.
Yeah.
And they will. But this is a valuable skill, and it takes checking the ego one night a week or whatever it is when you're a ride leader And it makes for a wonderful environment for people, and it keeps some of these newer people around, inspired and sticking with groups.
Right.
That's a really good point, because I've been on some group rides where they're telling you this is a C ride, and you bring somebody new to it, and you look down and they're doing almost an A, and they're the leader, and people are like, they stop, they turn around, and they never come back. And I don't know about everybody here, but I love bringing more people into the fold and keeping that consistent speed and not going above what that person
Right.
says they can do is highly important.
Yeah.
Highly.
So I tend to use the power meter rather than speed, but I
But
cheat.
they're looking at that, and that's
Yeah.
what they're looking at. And even if they could go faster, in their mind, they're thinking they can only go, 11, 12 or 12, 13, whatever it is. So it's also a mind game at that time. So you may think you're pushing them to do more, but you're just discouraging them, and it's just so disappointing.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah, just to continue in that vein, especially if the goal is to try to reach out to newer riders, or if you are Pelotonia team captains, chances are a lot of your new riders, they're going to ride the 20-mile route. They're going to ride at about a 10-mile-an-hour pace. And you just have to get them to the point where they can ride that kind of, they're not going to ride that kind of speed ever.
Never.
I mean, I've been riding 10 years now. I don't ride that kind of speed. I'm still like a D rider, but bringing them into that fold of the cycling community, building that social piece, and then also giving them the skills of the skill sets they need, and just working them up more about distance than speed. So I would just keep that in mind, especially if you're working with brand new people who are just out there cycling for the first time.
Yeah, shameless little plug. This is something, we're a team COPC, and we've really been focusing on this for that year. We recognize, and it was talked about earlier, about bringing in new riders and marketing them. We realized this year that there might need to be 2. So starting in May, we're offering like a 101 beginner's course. We're going to do it again in June, like a 101, because you're right. People who are riding the 20 probably aren't getting their bike out until like June or July.
Or they got a bike donated to them that they got that month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things, and I'm telling you this, and if your leaders, just as suggestions for your own Peloton, we're going to do a 201 course starting in June. So there are those folks that did start and are like, hey, I kind of want to step it up, but they're not ready for the faster rides that have Sunday. We're going to have that as well by welcoming others also, because we're recognizing that.
I have another dumb
You need to
question.
belong to COP for that ride, do you?
Say that again?
You don't need to belong to
No, you
COP.
No, COPC, no, you can, anybody's welcome, anybody and everybody. So even if you guys as leaders, like as Peloton leaders, needs to like get more people, or hey, just go join, as we're talking about growing the community, we welcome everybody and anybody.
Okay, let's.
What is
Yeah.
Team COP?
COPC
Central
is
Ohio
different from
Primary
COP.
Care.
Yes.
Central Ohio Primary
Oh.
Care. Pelotonia team.
Okay.
You can be a patient and join.
It's primary. You can join us.
Yeah. Yeah, let's try to keep moving. We're down to the less than half an hour. So, okay, if you do pace lines, check with the people. Are they used to riding in a pace line or not? I mean, if they're not used to even drafting, they may not be ready to do pace lines. And then explain how you want the pace line to work. I've been in pace lines that were just things of beauty. And then there were pace lines where you had one rider who decided to do his own thing. And it doesn't work, and it disrupts the whole pace line. So have a ride leader, new riders should be in a slower group or towards the end of a pace line. They can even just be wheel leeches and always stay at the back if need be.
That is perfectly okay and preferred.
We've done that.
You know that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. So then review, you want to pre-ride, review the rules of what you want to be happening on your ride, review hand signals and pace line etiquette if they are unfamiliar with that. And if you do often do pace lines, there will be others there who are familiar with it. You can have them assist as well.
Pace lines are where our crashes happen,
Mhm.
okay? So obviously, we see a fair number of crashes and reports from the fast A people. They're competitive and on edge. It's to be expected. But once those B groups and others get into pace lines, things happen. But generally, those groups can be restrained and behave well, and most do.
Right.
Most of our crash reports come from the faster group.
Yeah. So, if you're getting a team or a group used to being in a pace line, just make sure you find a very quiet road, and then you can start bringing them in and training them in pace lines.
It's a wonderful thing. That's where the group is. That's where you get the benefits of hanging
Yeah.
on and getting a little fitness. So
Right.
it doesn't have to be scary. It's actually a great thing.
Yeah, when you're in a good pace line, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So, okay, on the road. So once again, bicycles are vehicles. You have to obey all traffic rules. And we've all seen people who have blown through traffic lights and so on. You explain that that is unacceptable in your group. That's kind of pre-ride. We obey the traffic rules. Single file on narrow roads. Many of our roads we can ride two abreast, but when I'm riding with a group and I see a car back, I will drop into a single file because many of our roads are pretty narrow and it'd be difficult to pass two abreast. We are allowed to ride two abreast by state law.
How do you signal that, Hank, when you go from 2 to 1?
I yell, car back, single up. I've got a loud voice.
There's also a thing too about riding two abreast. It all depends on how big your group is. If you've got a group of 12, riding two abreast is going to be a shorter route for those cars to get around you than if you have all 12 of us in a single line.
Right.
So
It really depends on the situation. So yeah, be aware of your situation. Sometimes staying in two abreast is a little bit safer because a car can get around. It's a shorter line.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. Okay. Generally for signaling, there are still people who will use the old left-hand turn signals when cars didn't have electric blinkers. So since you're sitting on the left side of the car, you'd use your left arm for all your signals because if you hold out your right arm, nobody could see it. That's not well understood anymore. So right turns, right arm, left turn, left arm, and then slowing and so on. So you can usually interact pretty well with drivers and let them know what's going on. Now, I ride near campus quite a bit, just a short commute. I've got a couple of places where I can sort of pull over a little bit and let cars get past, and I will wave them on to let them know, yes, I know you're there, and yes, it's okay to pass, or I'll even try to hold them up and say, hold on a minute, wait. And generally drivers have been cooperative. I'm letting, yeah, I know you're back there. You're going to want to go faster than I want. And just be patient a second. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been cautious on that because I've heard as a driver, even if like you wave somebody on and they get in an accident because you telling them that you can be liable for their
Well,
accident.
in this case, there's a nice section of wide shoulder. So I can go from the lane onto the shoulder and let them pass. Okay, so they don't have to pull over out into the other lane. But yes, you do have to be careful that you don't put them into a difficult situation. If the group stops, get off the road. Don't block the road. Okay?
This includes the trail.
Okay, yeah, that would be a good point. And if you're in the lead and you're starting to slow or whatever and stop, I'll usually say stop ahead, like if there's a stop sign, and then I'll say slowing and stopping. But I don't stop pedaling right away. I call it I take a couple of more strokes and then start slowing or stopping to give people a chance to react.
Jamming the brakes on.
Huh?
I just jam those brakes on.
I have had to do that on occasion.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're in the lead, just try to give people time to react.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Still working?
Looks like it. In fact, I don't have any more batteries.
All right. So I guess off topic real quick. Evan asked me to say something. One thing to have too for like when you're making routes is have your riders tell you what's going on. It's like maybe they drive the roads or so forth. So when they chip and seal the routes, you ride it Tuesday, then you ride it again Thursday, and all of a sudden it's totally changed, right? So I don't know, just keep that. That's a good way to get advice as to how to not make crazy routes that are 30 miles of a chip and seal. All right. So back to group rides. So, I don't know. Education is going to be kind of a big deal, right? And so when you're in baseline, right? I guess don't overlap wheels. Don't put your brakes on. Ride smooth. These kinds of things, right? You have to be predictable, and so it's really important to try to educate beforehand if you have a new rider, right? But also on the road. What I've been trying to do this next year is try to get an atmosphere where everybody can make a comment without being, people should take it as a helpful comment, not as a criticism or such. Everybody has different things, so it's gonna be interesting to see how this works. But I'm trying to, have a healthy atmosphere where people can point out problems, because it only takes one person to ruin everyone's day. And then on top of that, making sure that people in the front, whoever's in the front of the group, they need to know that they're responsible for calling out and looking ahead to make sure that if there's potholes, roadkill, whatever it is, right? They're the ones responsible for calling it out. And then what I've always had a problem with is people repeating the calls, right? So if you're in a big group, people in the front call it out. Three riders, three rows back, they're not hearing that anymore, especially if it's windy, right? And so making sure that people repeat these calls. So these are the kind of things I try to emphasize. I also have riders that like to look back a lot. The traffic, they want to see where the person behind them is, whatever. They just keep looking back. I tell them not to do it. just keep. I just say eyes forward. And but I do recommend getting a mirror. A lot of people use those. I brought 2 of my own mirrors today. I like this little tiny one, but a little bit bigger one as well. Right? These are better than radars, but radars are helpful as well. They're more expensive and so forth, but they work. Those also work quite well for cars. But the mirror works if you're dropping somebody off the back of your group. You can see that. You can see the cars. You can see crazy behavior. You can see lots of things. And so I recommend that, so that you just have a lot better situational awareness of what's going on. Okay, and then I guess basically 100% of the time, keep right of center, right? Don't cross yellow lines. Don't ride into oncoming traffic. It's just, there's no reason for it. Yeah, and so, whenever you come up to an intersection and so forth, right, it's besides calling out, we're gonna go over some of the calls that you should be, signals you should be using, at least in my opinion. But make sure you're starting and stopping kind of slowly, right? You're not leaving people at intersections, making people sprint to catch back on. All those kind of things kind of degrade your experience or are unsafe as well. Because there's a lot of if you're stuck at an intersection and the group's going down the road, there's a lot of pressure for you to cross that road, maybe irresponsibly, to get back onto the group so that you don't get dropped, right? And so don't play around with intersections.
I often announce to the group ahead of time, cross individually when safe, we'll regroup on the other side.
Yeah, so if you're on a drop ride, so if you're on an A ride or maybe a B plus ride or so forth, right? You kind of have to. If you're on a drop ride, you essentially that person's responsible for getting themselves home. They either better be really familiar with the area, or they should have a flight computer and know the route so they can get their ways home. Don't use aero bars in a group ride, right? Even if you're at the front, no aero bars. Essentially, if you want to be that guy, just ride by yourself. 100 feet back from the group or something, right? If you're wearing earbuds or headphones, you're not going to hear the traffic. You're not going to hear people calling out stuff. You're just there. You're not part of the group, right? You're just kind of
We got a little bit of pushback on the aero bar thing last year, so let me be clear.
Okay.
It is not a COP policy to say no aero bars. It's common sense in a group. You as a ride leader, people can show up to the ride and have aero bars on, but they are not welcome in a group if you as a ride leader say, do not use your aero bars on this ride. We will back you up on that, okay? So, but it's not an overall policy. Earbuds, that's actually a law thing that you can't have anything in your ears. These days they have those bones things. You can't, we can just say, please, as long as your ears are free, that's cool, but push back on that aero bar thing with a few rides, but it's we'll back up. If you on a ride say we don't want you using them, get to the back.
Yeah.
That's cool. We'll back you up.
Why is that? Like, why don't
you don't have quick reaction to brakes?
You can't steer very well, and
it's an extra second of reaction time.
And you don't get the person behind you to draft. That's just rude.
Yeah.
That's why I ride behind a big guy.
I can't find any bigger guys to ride behind.
Question about by aero bars, do you mean like you're talking about the ones that are up front, or you're talking about drop bars?
Yeah, you don't have brakes on aero bars.
One comment going back to slide or two, you talked about maintaining a steady pace, but really maintaining a steady level of effort.
Right.
So too many people think when they go uphill, if they were going 18 miles an hour before, they should try to hold 18 going up
the hill, down the hill.
That's a good way to drop people.
Yeah.
If you're going into the wind, you're going to go slower.
Yeah.
You want to maintain pace. The power meter thing.
Yeah, I cheat with my power meter.
That understanding is hard. It has different meanings if you're A or a B. And it gets
a little bitty hill. It's one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
One comment of pace lines and riding for new riders just getting into pace lines.
Yeah.
It's not intuitive for them to keep pedaling even when they're putting their brakes on to adjust. So I often have to kind of educate on that to help them understand that a little better. They want to stop pedaling when they put their brakes on in the middle of the pace line. That makes it more difficult to maintain
Don't put your brakes on.
Well, you don't want to hit the guy in front of you either, all right? So, I mean, you don't need to put your brakes
on. Yeah. Hopefully everyone's being good.
Gently, just feather your brakes.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And so so if you're on rollers, right? I guess lots of things like keep right. Just make sure everyone knows that people are coming out of the car back. We'll get to these signals in a second. So this is gonna be maybe Hank will have a different kind of a level of comfort for this next one. But so for us, right, we typically say after we reach 16 riders, that's 8 people double two abreast, right? That's where we say we got to break up into multiple groups of two groups of 8, right? Hank, you had a little bit smaller number before, but it depends on the roads you ride on, lots of things, right? But kind of just be aware that you shouldn't have a group of 30 people. Cars can't pass 15 bikes in a row, right? Or if you're single file and there's 30 bikes in a row, that would be, probably might get the police called there. Rightfully so, probably. Keep right. Obviously, if you're turning left for sure, right? Make sure even if you're turning right, make sure you're looking for traffic behind you. People turn right, they go left a little bit to make the turn easier. Make sure everyone's aware of what's going on. And you know, we'll get to the calls in a second. So more and more now, people are using like GoPros and things like that on their bikes to film incidences of being shot. Just bad drivers, coal rolling, lots of things, right? So, you know, that's not a bad idea, depending on how long you ride and such.
Even the radars that don't have cameras on them.
Yeah.
If you're involved in an incident, they can use just evidence on that, but they can both show what happened. So that even that information is useful if there's an incident for the police.
Yeah, they have cameras they have radar cameras that'll
Well, these
track
are,
it too.
these are
Yeah.
without,
Yeah.
get the old style like I do.
Yeah.
They can pull the information from there too, show what happened, the speed of the car and everything.
Dublin, Aaron got the GoPro of the truck and Evan, excuse me, and presented it, and they actually went after and got the guy and prosecuted him. So that was a big success.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Incidents are becoming more and more frequent. I think I always worry about the marijuana laws and stuff.
So for myself, I have a GoPro and I have it actually on top of my helmet. And even if it's not rolling, people can see it. And it really helps, I think, remind drivers like to behave because they're on camera. Even if they're not on camera, I think they're on camera. It really does help.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my recommendation. It looks very silly, but it's
Yeah.
very.
But it's not arrow.
Yeah.
That's probably
like a cone on front or something.
It's probably 6 or 7 watts there.
I'm a kid and I have an e-bike, so.
Yeah.
We have become targets in the culture wars. I've read several articles on those ways, where people are posting, running over us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be aware of that.
That's good documentation.
Yeah, well, the person that that shot at BB, an air rifle at somebody, this last year, definitely a target. It wasn't, so yeah. And then I guess overall, as a cyclist, whether you like it or not, you're representing the community. So be friendly. Try not to return people's aggravations or such, and just know the laws and obey them. Right.
Getting down to the last few
Yeah, I
minutes.
know.
Yeah, just one more thing that I didn't see up here is if you're riding at night, making sure like taillights are not in a dazzle or like a daylight mode is a big thing that I've noticed.
Or blinking, because the blinking's hard.
Yeah,
Blinking's hard.
you're blind the guy behind you.
Well, it's hard to get depth perception if it's just blinks really
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah.
So,
There are additional benefits to a steady burn, but primarily I'm thinking for the rider behind you.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't wear black.
Yeah. Have lights. Lights are required.
Question. The breaking up into smaller groups, that's just a COP recommendation. That's not
it's just a
there's no legal
yeah.
That feels less safe to me because
what's
when you
that?
have cars hopping between groups.
Oh, you gotta get your
creates-
group smart. You gotta get them farther.
Sure, but I mean, I still think that feels far less safe to me than keeping a larger group together and forcing cars to slow down and really wait for enough time.
They said that they don't wait.
Well, they will. I mean, if you take the lane, they will figure out a
Well,
different
if you're on two lane road,
yeah,
they just go and hammer it, and they're like, oh crap, there's a whole bunch of cyclists here. Like,
They don't estimate very well, and all of a sudden now they're
Yeah.
pulling back over to avoid the head on and taking out the cyclists.
Situational awareness and remembering that because we have the right to do something doesn't mean that it's necessarily the most cordial thing to do. Remember, we are sharing the road. We're asking a lot of our car drivers, so let's repay and be courteous as well. So again, it's situational awareness.
yeah, I mean, these aren't hard and fast numbers. These are numbers that we use for where we ride and people we ride with.
We can all, as cyclists, when you've been on the road a bit, you can feel the way they're behaving behind you.
So I guess along that line, Aaron, what do you recommend as a gap between groups? Maybe that'd be helpful.
Oh, I mean, 20 yards isn't enough.
what is 100 yards is not enough.
It's not enough, right? I mean, you gotta have a big, you have to have a big, you know.
Yeah.
Cars get nervous if the gap's too small, then they try to shoot the whole, they try to shoot the whole thing still, so.
But I mean, in terms of starting the ride, let's say, you know, you got 20 people out there and you're gonna break them up into 2 groups.
Yeah.
You talking like a 3 or 4 minute gap from the
Oh.
time your group leaves till the next one?
No.
20 seconds,
Really?
something like that. Probably, you want, yeah, just
You
something.
can still have a group in sight then, basically.
Yeah. I
Use
just,
of the driver, but you-
As a driver, would you feel comfortable pulling into that gap?
okay. I think we've hit this multiple times, just, you know, stay right on the top of the hills. This is just so that you're not, you know, surprising a car coming over and, you know, getting the bad end of it there. So this is you know, Hank, you like to push this one. I don't know. But basically, you know, anytime you come up to an intersection, right? The question is about the legality of calling clear, right? So if you say that the road is clear, everyone else takes that as a fact and then tries to cross the road, and you know, you didn't realize there was a car a little bit farther down that it was clear for you, but now it's not for them. You know, the suggestion is never to use the word clear and just to say I'm going, you know, or indicate the direction of the car. There's cars left, cars right, you know, those types of things. But also on the way up to the intersections, for instance, right, like making sure that people know that you're going to regroup and you know, that kind of thing, so that people aren't pressured into crossing unsafely. And you know, and make sure that people know that everyone's supposed to check the traffic for themselves and make sure they have a clear sight of what's going on.
And just because the light is green does not mean that people aren't running lights. Be careful.
Okay, so here's a picture of my mirror, and you know, there's a typical like a radar that you might see. You know, on the bike computer itself, it'll actually show you kind of how far away a car is at. And this is, I think this is good to keep situational awareness of what the group is doing, people that are dropping, all this kind of stuff, right? And so I think this is, I highly recommend them. I'm going to recommend all of the riders and all the group riders and the riders in general have mirrors that are in the Hilliard group this next year. So I'm hoping that that's going to improve things in general. We had a number of incidents with cars like passing when we're going to turn left. Everyone's indicating, but they don't care. That they can't be bothered with slowing down for 5 seconds to let us go. So then you're yelling at everybody, don't turn, car back, right? And you know, you don't want to have many of those situations in a year. Okay, I'm gonna go over these things really quickly. So if you have questions, just slow me down. You know, typically if you're slowing or stopping, you put your hand out and you say stopping, slowing, whatever it might be, right? Make sure that everyone's repeating this. And there's lots of different signals that people have. I guess I'm going over this a little bit, is to maybe make sure it's kind of consistent across Columbus, so that you can kind of go from group to group and kind of have a similar expectation. Some people like, you know, alternate for slowing, just do this. You know, I don't see that as much, but that's probably still okay. You know, left turn, right turn, and you're gonna call out turn left, turn right, and people behind you are gonna repeat this, right? If you're turning left, for instance, I don't think we talked about it, but it's a good idea for someone to in the back of the group to move over all the way to the left and make sure that they're kind of claiming the lane, or especially if you're going into a left turn lane or a right turn lane. I guess, well, right turn's easier, but yeah. Okay. Point out the hazards, right? So you're going to call out to be a hole, bump, stick, roadkill, the gravel. I think those are probably the 5 things that we would typically call out, and try not to like be super specific about it. Like give a sentence about it, because it's going to be a long path before you've gotten up to it. People won't recognize it, and you know, you should point at it, right?
You call left or right on those two. I think that's helpful.
Because time. Sometimes you're going kind of quick. Yeah. but I point at it with the arm that where
Yeah,
it's side of the
well,
attack,
but back in the pack, you may not be able to see
Yeah.
or hear that so well.
And I know that this year, there was a stick incident,
Matt,
what's that?
the Galena with the
Yeah.
seconds, it became massive.
Yeah. So it's really important for the people in the front to call this out, not get the whole group into a situation where you're like, well, here's the thing right here, and now it's going to go through the whole group, right?
Right.
Try to have people looking far ahead so that you could just move around it. It doesn't take much, but these little things can really help. I guess this isn't clear what you're doing here, but if you're in the front of the group and you're done polling, you have two choices. Are we gonna get to it, or did they get out of order somehow?
It should be the same order.
Oh, okay. So this is just sorry. This is just another way to indicate road hazards is just to wiggle your elbows. And whether you're gonna stand up, there's a hole or a bump, you still make the same verbal call out. But if something comes up quickly that you don't realize, sometimes you can't see a little hole that ends up being worse than you think it is. Instead of taking your hands off the handlebars, you might just give it, shout it out and give it a little two elbow flick. Railroad tracks and so forth, right? You typically indicate tracks and call it out like that. If they're diagonal tracks, for instance, you definitely want to call it out because people need to cross those perpendicular to the tracks. You don't want to go in line because your tires get in there and people go down. So if you want people to, there's two different calls for if you want people to move right and move left. If you see a hazard coming up, you can either tell people to move left. People just put their hand behind them and point as well. Those are good ways to get the group to do something before it becomes an issue. So if there's a car on the road, a walker, a dog, whatever it might be, right? So if you're done polling at the front, what do? You're at the front of the group. You have two options. You can flick the wrist. You can flick one elbow, and you flick the elbow on the side that you want people to pass you on. So if you're in a group, you got rider here, and you're going to go back. You flick the wrist. You move over slowly, and people will know that you're dropping off. And give it a little time between when you flick or when you indicate, so that if they're overlapping your wheel for some bad reason, that you don't take them out while you're moving over. All right, and then the other option is to tap your butt. So you tap your butt on the side that you want them to pass. So if you're two abreast, it's easy. But if you're single file, you're gonna want to tap. And when you get to be quicker, you want to drop onto the windy side of the group. So if there's a cross breeze this way, you really want to drop off onto the right, and so you tap your left butt and let the group pass you on the left.
That's funny. I was taught. I was the lead out domestique, and that was come with me.
Yeah. So that's
secret. Come with me.
Yeah.
Better share your prize winnings.
All right. So if you're doing for the front, you just call out that you're dropping.
And just this is cool too, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that?
This is cool too, right? Just come on.
Yeah.
You need to try to finish this up.
Yeah.
Past time already.
Okay. Oh, Aaron, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Your mic. Well, okay. Well, still has some.
I can. Does this work too?
This one should work.
All right, I'll stand here. All right. So one finger in the air, two fingers in the air. Call out single up, double up. That was a question earlier. It's a good way to get single file or two abreast. Other call outs that maybe don't have hand signals: car up, car back, car right, car left, depending on where they're coming from. Passing, car passing, or pass. You hear lots of different things. That's kind of would be nice to have that more appropriate. Yeah, so Evan's saying that if people are echeloning, that people drop to the correct side. You should always, if you're dropping to the windward side, windward side, the side the wind is coming from, you should always be going to the right direction. Yeah. If you're passing somebody, you should say, on your left and pass them on the left. You generally don't try pass people on the right. Someone yells up the word mechanical, right? Everyone, the whole group should stop, right? You shouldn't leave the guy to his own devices on his own. Never slam on your brakes in the group. Just kind of slowly stop after you've heard this, and try to deal with whatever's going on. I ask people to keep left or keep right. So depending on the wind direction, people will often gutter everybody else in the group, and it makes it hard. The group starts breaking up. So I might ask people to keep left so that we can stay in the draft. Dog right, dog left. That's obvious, I think. You might say take the lane if you want someone at the back to move over so that you can have the whole lane for your left turn that's coming up. People might say slow roll. If someone's getting dropped in the group, you want them to let them back on so that they can have the benefits of the draft. If someone says all on, then you're ready to go again.
Soft pedal.
Yeah, soft pedal, yeah. Yeah, so then, if you're in double, so this is a double pace line, right? You're running two abreast, and you're going to drop off. Each person's going to drop off to their individual side. Don't be this person. Sorry, I have to point over here. Don't be this guy and riding up ahead of the guy in the red, right? Try to keep everyone in the same place, right? If you're riding ahead of them, you're making them ride harder than they want to, and you're going to break up the group. Have lots of wheels that are kind of overlapping. Generally, people, it's not required, but generally the lead riders would fall off, would drop off at the same time, and you're going to tap your butt, wiggle your elbow, like we indicated before. And if you're taking the front or you're at the front, you really need to maintain. I said speed, but you really should maintain effort. So that you're not causing these big accordions in the group, right, where you are making a huge effort for people, or everyone's overlapping wheels because everyone's slowed down, right? Those are kind of unsafe times when you need to, which are much safer if you can keep things consistent. Yeah, and so so it's a single pace line, right? So you have a single line of people, and then you're just dropping off. And the direction you drop off to is you should drop off into the windy side. So in this case, the wind is coming from left to right, right? So you're dropping off on the windward side. And you should ride while you're doing this, you're probably gonna start turning to echelon. You should ride on this case, you should ride towards the left side of the lane, one lane. And yeah. Okay. What's that?
Get pretty complicated here.
And the final one's rotating pace line, right? And this is a continually rotating pace line. The direction you rotate, counterclockwise or clockwise, depends on where the wind's coming from. You should keep the if the wind is coming from the left side, you're gonna rotate counterclockwise. So I'm not sure this is covered. Probably there's a lot of people that need to worry about this right now, but it's here for people's edification later. And generally, even if you're dropping back, you don't want to drop back super fast or super slow. Probably a mile to mile and a half slower than the group is probably a good speed to be dropping back. And it's always nice if you're in a rotating pace line, or even anywhere. It's nice to say that you're the last person, so they know to hop back on. Or if they're rotating around in front of you, you can say clear, so that they know that that they can move over and not cause trouble. right? And we've seen this before. Right, we echelon all the time, but we do it in one lane. We're not crossing 3 lanes. Okay.
Can I ask real quick on that?
Yeah.
So I know Ohio law, it's 2 abreast. So what does that mean legally? Because I've heard complaints from motorcyclists about what you just showed. It's shown there. I mean, to me, it looks safer. But my argument is, I've always heard, well, you can only do 2 abreast. But
Oh, you are 2 abreast.
okay.
Until one guy's dropping back.
Okay.
Well, but
That helps though. I mean,
you can't go left to center, right? And if there's a car coming, we generally just kind of collapse it a little bit and make sure that they have a better sight line to get around us.
What percentage of the weekly rides are people riding in pace lines?
It's hard to say.
We do it, I mean, B- and above are typically a baseline.
That's like,
Say B minus.
Yeah.
that's like 80% of people or something.
Certainly.
But no one's gonna, only the A's are gonna be doing a rotating baseline. And it might vary for the other people, but we generally ride in groups.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try drafting, but it's usually like 2 people, maybe 3, not a full pace line. And even new riders often have trouble with drafting, so you just have to take that.
And some of the pace lines are a little looser as far as how much distance between them.
Yeah.
So you kind of start out with a more widely spaced pace line and kind of move it up. But
Pick up the flyer out there or the stuff on group riding. Think of group riding as a little different than pace riding where there's more speed involved. Group is just a way for a few people to be together safely, legally, and enjoy a little bit of that.
A good time to teach drafting is on a really windy day because you're going slow. And
I find that I'm really good because it's really easy to find my draft.
but yeah, and you can get that person you're teaching a little bit feeling safer back there because you're only going 12 miles an hour.
And you get a lot of dividends on a windy day, so people appreciate
and they
that
can feel it.
Yeah, you feel it for sure.
They can feel it, and then when they drop back 2 feet, they can feel the wind, and then they say, "Okay, now come back up," and you'll feel that pocket.
Drafting still
If you have to go ahead. I'm going to try to finish up here very quickly. So just as a point, we are permitted to do certain things, but sometimes that's not the courteous thing to do. So courtesy should rule as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and as I mentioned, a frustrated driver is a dangerous driver. Always be aware of situational awareness, and the leader of the ride should correct riders rather than waiting for the police to do it. The police are not uniform in their interpretation of the law. So be courteous to the policeman, wave when you go past, try to be very friendly and helpful and so on. But I'm not sure how much you want to explain the law to a policeman. That doesn't usually go over well. Okay, but you can say, you can try to discuss things with them. But if you really want to get them annoyed, disobey traffic laws and create a rolling roadblock. Okay, you're just causing problems for other people. Pictures, take videos, video statements from witnesses, do whatever you can to document any kind of incident. And we should stay calm. It always comes across much better to the police officer when we're the calm people and the driver is ranting and raving. In town, you have heavier traffic, so not all of your riders may be familiar with that. So know how to handle multiple lanes, watch out for dooring, so on for people opening doors. Sometimes if there's enough lanes, you can easily ride 2 abreast and just take the lane. Okay, so question, do I lose my ride when I leave? Some people think so. You are out on your bike, for goodness sake. So you don't really lose your ride. It may not be as fast as you like, but you're out. So, anyway, be aware of that. Coming up to things like traffic circles or bad intersections, you may tell the group, loosen up. Allow a little bigger gap, just in case somebody has to slam on the brakes quickly. That it gives you a little more time so you don't have accordion accidents. Broad range, I think we've kind of discussed this already, different skill levels. Generally, I try to lead from the rear, or at least be close enough that I can see the entire group in my mirror. But I will drop back sometimes, especially if I have a new rider, and ride with them and make sure they're comfortable. So if you lead from the back, problems are in front of you, you'll see them happen. Okay, I don't think I'm going to go through the rest of these scenarios. You know, we've kind of talked a lot about them. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your patience. Sorry that we ran over, but thank you for coming. Jeff, you want to say anything else?
I have about 90 seconds of housekeeping. So first of all, a thanks to Aaron and Hank and Gordon and Trish for contributing over the years.
Trish, if you want to say something about traffic laws, I almost forgot because it wasn't on the slide.
So if you read the thing handout, it shows you how laws, and not just the bicycle laws, but the traffic laws, with like giving some notes about how to fight the bicycles. And then that group cycling thing, that it's kind of like from the lab, that what to show a group rider. So just look those over. I don't think I have to talk about it.
Right. But also, you mentioned that some municipalities, some of the suburbs have different traffic laws.
It'll take me a minute, but I'll do it quick. Bexley requires riding within 3 foot of the curb. We're trying to get that changed because they allow 2 abreast. That's not possible. Not Bexley, I'm sorry, Dublin. Bexley has a requirement to ride a side path if there's one there. They have no side paths. That's not a problem. But they also have, you have to walk through intersections. For 10 years, I've been trying to get these things fixed, so maybe someday.
You can't require a bike to not be on the road, right? There's a law, you can't trump Ohio law.
I know. I've on the council tried to talk to them.
All right.
What's the Dublin rule?
The Dublin law is you have to ride within 3 feet of the edge of the road.
Single file.
Yet uniform traffic code says as far right as
Practical with all the exceptions. And then thirdly, Columbus has these terrible electric e-bike and e-scooter laws because they did them before the state came up with theirs. But the new Bike Plus plan is supposed to be fixing that. But I was at a meeting last week where they said it could take 1 to 3 years. I'm like, we've been asking you for 5 years to fix this. You cannot ride an e-bike on a road that's faster than 35 miles an hour posted. You have to be 16 to ride an e-bike, and you can't ride more than 20 miles an hour on an e-bike. And none of those are in the state law, and they're stupid. So I hope we can. I've talked to how city attorney. If someone was riding on a 45 mile an hour road and got hit on an e-bike, a smart lawyer would say you weren't supposed to be there. So, you know, kind of keep track in your towns what the laws are and make sure you get them fixed.
So bike advocacy is a dirty game. And this is why, and it's complicated, and you know, state, local, federal jurisdictions and things. And that's why we want to support the efforts of the people and the groups that go to bat for us with this ever evolving, changing landscape of bicycles on the road, on the path, and e-bikes, et cetera. So thank you for all you do, and et cetera.
Can I
So,
do one more thing?
one more thing.
We want to get Ohio to allow shoulder riding. Right now, shoulders are a no man's land. You're really not supposed, it's not part of the roadway. But the new manual from the federal government says shoulders are also for bicycles. So, and ODOT supports that. So we're going to hope to get maybe in the transportation budget to allow shoulder riding. But it doesn't mean you have to be on the shoulder, it just means you're allowed to be on the shoulder.
Right, because I've actually heard if you're riding on the shoulder and something happens, you are not following the law.
Right now, it's
You are
not
out-
supposed
you are a pedestrian if you are outside.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a breakdown law, Layton right now. But the federal wants it to be more like another option for us, so.
Okay, before you go, I want you in close proximity when I go through my 3 words. So as leaders, I don't think I heard these stitched together, but when we are in groups and coaching people, whether it is on the road, rural, nice group rides, Or if we are in the road by ourselves in the city or out in the middle of nowhere on our own, we want to display three things. We want to be consistent, predictable, and under control. And we want all our people, particularly when we're in groups, under control.
And courteous.
Courteous. So did I hit the three right? It doesn't Lab or somebody use those three with everything they teach. Consistent, predictable, so that our other vehicular friends around us know what we're doing and not doing, and we're not coming to a stoplight and doing a track stand. Yeah, it looks cool. Put your foot down so they know what you're doing, that you're stopped. Okay, stuff like that. It's nice to move over a little bit so cars can turn right on red too. It's not hard to do. Okay, that was that. For you group riders, I have discovered over my 30 years that some of the most dangerous times in groups are in April, May, because people are coming out and they want to prove to you that Zwift has worked and that they are. I'm not kidding about this. What's the other month that's the most dangerous on the road?
October.
Why?
Because the end of the season.
No, but there's one other month. What's on TV in July?
Oh.
Tour de France. Everybody wants to come out and be a sprinter for the next road sign, etc. So be careful during those years and help keep people in control. Now, my three housekeeping things. We will send you something about listing rides, going and reviewing your calendar listings. Evan, our wonderful leader from the Dublin Shamrock Group, this is the third, fourth year he's organized a swap meet, March 30th. I think usually a Sunday. It's gaining steam and a lot more people are coming in with stuff. We'll actually see if we can maybe do a little mechanical thing in conjunction with that too. I hope, Evan, you're listening and hear that and approve. But you'll see us promote that. And lastly, we haven't done a CPR first aid training in a while, so we are going to do it. And in years past, I think COP has paid half the freight and asked you as ride leaders to pay the other half. It takes the better part of a day, I understand, but we would provide pizza or whatever. So we will do it. I highly encourage you will come, particularly if you're a tour leader or something, or a big leader in a nighttime ride. So thank you so much for coming. Is there any other questions or last housekeeping before we go ride our bikes?
Yeah.
I can't.
So if somebody asks us to be a ride leader, do we have a link, something? Do we show that we've taken the COP class and we're certified?
You'd be in touch with me.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll have the conversation. Are you part of the COPC group or Galena?
Galena.
So yeah, so we're going to reach out to all those that have been the ride leaders, and and Aaron, or I forget who your guys are there, or Mike Perry will say, look, I want to list these 3 new people, get them on the listing so we've got a full team. And we just add you to the list, we add you to the email distribution list, and you go to sleep at night with warm, fuzzy feelings as you're helping new people come in by sport. Be enthused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you remind me your name? I'm sorry.
Huh?
Can you remind me your name?
Jeff Stevens with
The
PH.
last time I did the ride leader training, there was also mentioned that the Ohio Department of Transportation has a link to county engineers, so you know what roads are being worked on.
Yeah.
It's hard to find that information.
I know, but I've been able to do it for my notes the last time.
You gotta call them about chip and seal.
Yeah, we will we'll have a presence at the March 3rd or 8th big bike expo down in Cincinnati. It sounds like it's worth a trip.
Cora,
Cora.
I went last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's at a
Very good.
brewery place, and there are all sorts of cycling clubs and road bike things and off-road things and tours, so it sounds like a good time. Other than that, we'll keep in touch by email. Thank you for all you do. Encourage more people to come. We will host one more training at Pelotonia But it will be very specific for how to introduce new people in, not some of this other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.